Are you German and you've moved to New Zealand and then married someone from the Kingdom of Tonga? No? Then you have to stay on and meet my guest, Tina Kap-Kailea, because she has an incredible story to tell.
Hello, and welcome to 52 Weeks of Flow, the podcast that delves into the depth of human potential and the transformative power of flow. On this show, we talk about peak performance, flow, energy, and bridge the gap between science and woo-woo. Through authentic stories and real-life examples, my guests and I will help you dive into your superpowers and create your next level of success. My name is Bea-Marie, neuroscience geek, flow enthusiast, and your guide to rewilding yourself. I'm on a mission to raise the frequency of the planet by supporting you to untame yourself and step into your flow.
And I love wild. I love everything that it has to do with wild, with wildness, with rewilding. But I would love for you to tell me what is behind that.
Oh, good intro. The Wild Executive is my evolution of being, the high-fly power woman in corporate that then burned out. And I decided that it's got to be my title. Unapologetic Wild Woman is literally what I printed on my business card when I turned 50. Because that is who I am. I was always a little too wild, a little too loud, a little too much. And really embodying that is in the body of my work. It's what I tease out of other women taking a walk on the wild side. And rewilding is also the title of my book, Corporate Rewilding, because it's returning something to its natural state. And I've done that with myself, with the work that I've gone through. And it's everything I do and everything I teach and speak about is to do with being a little wild and, being the agitator and the disruptor. So that is fully me.
I love this so much because this is my jam, rewilding and coming back to your essence. This is what I do. This is what I do with my clients as well. And how do you respond to people who say, well, yeah, you cannot rewild or you cannot get wild. This is going to get chaotic. If everybody gets wild, there's no structure, there's no this, there's no that. How do you reply to that?
I'd say it's BS because they haven't actually entertained a thought on what that actually means. And I mean, I'm not here to roast the patriarchy in general, even though, it's nice to make a fire about it. But as women in particular, we have been conditioned to not be too much, too nice. We have so much conditioning that's been laid upon us, not just in our immediate family and surrounding, but also through the generations. And we meant to fit in. So when we rewild ourselves, we just become, fully grounded, a little bit uncomfortable, and not letting ourselves be challenged. And we say no with conviction. So it's not comfortable for everybody. And I bet most of the people will say maybe chaos, they may be predominantly male, no offense. But we are wild creatures. We are also cyclical beings, which is one of the biggest learning curves I had in my work career, to actually listen to my body, to be that wild nature creature, because we are aligning with the moon with 28 different people throughout our cycle. And I think that needs to be honored. And if we were all a little bit more wild, our beautiful planet would have probably not ended up where it is at the moment. So it's a whole another podcast episode, but it's not chaos. It's just coming back to your innate essence is a word I use a lot. Just be yourself and don't give too much value on what other people think of you. If you're grounded in that, you're actually acting from a different place. And anyone who has experienced a wild woman or a fully grounded, embodied one, she walks into a room and before she even opens her mouth, there's an energy, there's an aura, and there is this, she exudes grace and power without having to do anything. And this is when you see someone being grounded and being a little wild, because they will tell you and also show you that no, they have boundaries and they are not afraid to actually voice it. So I think it's a beautiful thing to strive to, but it takes a lot of courage, especially in this day and age when everything is on social media. So if you actually speak your truth, and you wonder about who you may upset with your words or how you show up, what color you wear, you can go down a rabbit hole. And I flipped that on the script, and I want to be a living permission slip for middle-aged women. I'm 50 to go, you know what? We're just going to do ourselves. We're just being us and stuff the rest.
Yeah, I love this. I love this a lot. And for me, chaos, for example, means that there's movement. And chaos means that we're going up and down and we're moving and we're creating. And there's just growth. Through chaos, there's growth. Instead of rigidity, where it's just like stuck and it's like really hard. And it's like, it's like you need to push so hard to move a mountain. And instead you could just go like, and let's, like you said, create a fire.
There's magic. There is excitement. There is that exhilaration of the path that's not prepared for us to walk. And I've done a lot of travel, and I used to literally just buy the Lonely Planet, book the ticket, and go, let's see what happens, which terrifies a lot of people. Yeah. So a little bit of chaos or uncertainty, I think, is extremely good for us as humans, not knowing everything. And I love those kind of empty spaces in my head, as well as places I visited. You don't find me in a 5-star hotel necessarily lying on a pool with a lot of people, which is why I love New Zealand as well. Space, freedom.
Yes, and that's the perfect bridge to my next question, because like I said, you're in New Zealand. What brought you to New Zealand? What has drawn you to New Zealand? Because we were talking about magic as well. So,
New Zealand has been on my bucket list, like for so many people. And I used to collect stamps as a 10-year-old in a small village in Germany. And I remember looking at the stamps from all the exotic places. And I had a family friend of my father's who used to be the intrepid traveler. He did backpacking before it was a thing. He purchased an old ruin in Greece and sort of done it up over the years, and we spend our summers there. So he influenced me in terms of, stories from the wild world. And I wanted to go to Tahiti and to the Caribbean. And my grandmother used to say to me, 2 generations of post-war Germany, they were very pragmatic and like don't have these Hirngespinste, what's the English word, fluff in your brain. You need to be more realistic, And I used to literally rip pieces of travel brochures with wild sandy beaches and beautiful places and just put them all over my walls and said one day I'll be going there. And through a few twists and turns, I worked in export for a big company, and then I spent time in the Middle East, which is where I wanted to go to. I had in 98, I thought, I need to go and practice my English, move overseas for, I don't know, a year. So the Emirates seemed like a good idea at the time. I also crossed paths with somebody there, and I thought, let's go to Dubai. And then I had a job offer from a company in New Zealand, which was a client of the company that I worked for at the time. And then I thought, can this really be possible in New Zealand? And my parents were like, really? You couldn't find a place further away? And I thought, great. I'm getting to work in a place as well as be there for a length of time without having to worry about too many things. And I go, let's travel the Pacific and, go to Australia. So in the end, I ended up backpacking with my best friend for 3 months in the Pacific. We went to Fiji, the Cook Islands, Tahiti. And then I started working in New Zealand, and I loved it so much. It was everything I thought. And then trying to get used to the way they do things was pretty much opposite of how we do things in Germany. So there were times when I thought, should I just pack it all in and, move back? But the country held me, and then I crossed paths with this huge, hunky, good-looking Tongan man. And we kept crossing each other's paths, and, one thing led to another, and we've been together 20 years, have a beautiful son together, and I'm still here. And honestly, I don't think I would move anywhere else. I could spend some time in Japan, but New Zealand is really where my heart is.
Okay. So what is the difference? Like, how is it different? Like, how do they do it differently?
They call it here the number 8 wire mentality. And it means that, she'll be right. They don't take things so serious. They're also not quite as outspoken and they look at us probably being rather blunt. And I mean, I'm writing a whole different book about when you mix a Tongan and a German in terms of culture clash. um, they they just live a little bit more. And I always got the feeling back home, and certainly what was modeled to me in my surrounding, the companies I worked for in my own family, was that people live to go to work. And then they stay in the same company for, I don't know, 30 years. That's their aspiration. And then they have their 2 weeks to go to Spain or Italy, or, get as tan as possible. And that's it. And it doesn't come from a place of arrogance or anything. It's just, it was not me. And I couldn't figure out why not. When I moved here, it was a year and a half before I went back to Germany, and it hit me in the face to go, wow, the freedom and that feeling of lightness. And if it's a nice day, someone has an hour and a half lunch, they do not live to go to work. And they're very outdoorsy. And obviously where I live in Auckland, I have a handful of closed shoes that I wear for probably 3 months of the year. The rest is flip-flops, and it's just, it's lighter. That's the best word I can describe it. I love it.
Yeah.
And freedom.
Oh, and there you hit me. I'm coming to New Zealand.
Oh, please come for a visit. It's I couldn't honestly see myself anywhere differently. It has its share of things where, when you live here for so long, there's other things that come up. But in comparison, I travel to the US a lot, to Asia and the Middle East. Yeah, it's nice to visit, but no, New Zealand is where I hang my heart. And Australia is too hot and everything is out to bite you or kill you. And I'm not too fond of big spiders. Here, the worst thing that can happen is probably a flightless parrot chewing your laces from your hiking boots when you put them outside of your camping hut or something. Okay. But no critters that are out to harm you.
Okay.
And the ocean. I always loved the ocean. I'm a Cancerian. And I had always said one day I'll live close to the ocean, and not just 2 weeks a year. So even though if I'm traveling in Auckland, or you stand in traffic, I look out onto the ocean and it's like turquoise, like crystal, and it's just nice.
That really sounds beautiful. It really sounds beautiful. So how is
like an ad.
So
it is a gorgeous country.
So how is it like building a business down under? Like, how is that there?
It's a lot easier than in Germany and many other places. We are very entrepreneurial when it comes to spirit, and you're also not too rigid in your field. Like, I went to a business school, then I did an apprenticeship in Germany. I went into machine equipment production. So you learned in that field, and that means your trajectory is in there. I always wanted to go into media and publishing and writing and creative arts. And because I trained and learned in that field, I would have had a big trouble going from machine equipment manufacturing to publishing in Germany. Here, it doesn't really matter. It's very, very different. And if you just want to register a company or be a sole trader, there's not as many obstacles. The taxation is a lot easier. And also, I had my own cake company for a while because I was very creative. And when my son was born, I did really those cakes that you see on these TV shows, the family dog and the car. And I enjoyed it, and I did it from home. That's not something you could have done where I grew up, because of all the, you have the permit and the registration and the hygiene, this and all of the things. So here it's easy in comparison. And the only drawback I would say is we are tucked away at the bottom of the Pacific. So we're very heavily related, what's the word? My tongue is gone. Dependent, let's use that one, on export. And we're far away from everything. But obviously what I do, doing everything online since the pandemic, it's nice because it's everyone is so used to it. And I really had a boost after I came out of that because it's part and parcel these days. So I love it. Less structure and less permits. My husband always jokes, you need a license or a permit for most things in the place where you grew up with. And he's probably has a point.
Yes, yes, most definitely. So let's talk about, you're a writer now. Like, you
Yes.
write so beautiful books. And we already talked about this in the beginning, that you're writing a book right now that is pretty much still let's say, a topic that is not so much spoken about in public at the moment.
Yes.
So, yes, menopause. I mean, I I'm not in menopause yet, so I don't have anything, valuable to share about this, but I just love how more and more women in menopause, or who went through menopause, speak up about it. And and actually, I need to tell you this because I saw a comedian, and she was talking about, when we are in our fertile phase, our estrogen is really, really high, and we're like nurturing, and we're giving, and we're there, and we're including, and we're so compassionate with everybody, and we excuse everything that everybody does. And then she goes, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my hand moving up and down right now. If you're just listening to this, just imagine my hand going up and down. Because when you're in that phase, your estrogen is high, and your exception for everybody else is high as well. But the less estrogen you have, the less you give a shoot what other people think and what other people need. And so, and then she said, and then I actually was done with menopause, and my estrogen was gone basically, and I was free. I was free because I didn't give a flying whoop about what other people needed or wanted when I
Yeah.
didn't. So how do you feel about that?
Oh, I know exactly which comedian you watch because I watched the same thing and really almost peed my pants, which is a thing, a beautiful side effect that could happen in menopause, just said. But I love speaking about things that is silenced in society. And that journey started for me, actually, just tracking back a little bit. When I written my first book, it was about my journey with multiple miscarriages. And that is when my burnout happened, my breakdown, adrenal fatigue, everything. And the trauma my body held from losing 5 pregnancies. And it was silenced. No one speaks about it. And I got angry. There was an element of, that beautiful sacred rage that comes out to go, why is no one talking about this? So my mission started speaking about my experience, making it a safe place for others to share. Because unless you've gone through it, I'm sorry, you can give words of compassion, but 9 times out of 10, you put your foot in. So please just leave it. So I held space for women who have miscarried because the language made me angry. In English, it's called miscarriage. I didn't miscarry my child. My baby died inside of me. And the medical profession has some other choice terms that make me really furious. Evacuation of the uterus is the procedure that are undergone for the fifth one. Like, the actual terminology is so degrading that I go, okay, that has to change. We need to actually speak about what's going on and why is no one actually open about it, because we get told, don't mention that you're pregnant until you're over the hurdle at 12 weeks. And then you're trapped because no one knew you were pregnant unless it's your family or your partner. And then you don't necessarily know what to do with it when that comes to an end. And this whole nature takes its course. That's a whole nother story. So that's when the mission started. Now with menopause, I feel it's the same thing again, but with a different label. There are expectations from society on how we should view that. I'm basically now used goods. I'm supposed to, be quiet, demure, wear black, and fade in the background. Well, fat chance for that happening because we're actually going into a really powerful phase, which used to be celebrated. And as a space holder and someone who works with the archetypes, maiden, mother, crone, ritual, all of the beautiful things that we used to do, we actually become the mage and the crone, which means that filter you so nicely described, it's gone. So we literally do not give up about what people say. We're not going to be quiet. And it's so much power in that one. So I don't call them hot flashes. I say I'm having a power surge. So I work a lot with the mindset around it because it's not just symptoms and hormone therapy or not and all the stuff. We're actually going through a transition. We become the elders in our community, and that doesn't mean you're a granny with and walking around, but it's the same with why I choose to go grey naturally. I'm not going to dye my hair because I love it, and it doesn't make me any less this or that. We're just having labels, and they're gone. So whatever filter you had is disappearing for good. Or that when you're in your moon phase and you're going into your cycle and you have your bleed and you retract, you're going into your inner winter. That becomes your permanent normal. So there's no room for trying to contort yourself, and it's a powerful thing. So my book actually has the F word on the cover, in good old fashioned Billy Connolly style, because that's the best word. It needed to be on the cover. So it's about how to be a badass in midlife and embrace your feminine fire. That's the tagline of it, which is a little more politically correct for this podcast. But it's basically a reclamation of that power that comes with it, and a few funny anecdotes on all the other stuff that happens along the way.
That is so, so powerful. And I love it when things just come out of the closet, come out of the dark, and where we shine light into the most natural things. It's like bleeding. Like 51% of the population bleeds every month. And we're not talking about it. Or we're just, for the past 3 years, we're talking about it. I mean, when was it? Last year? Last year, they, it was something about products, period products that, oh, yes. Last year, in 23, they started testing period products with actual blood. Before that, they tested it with water. It's like this whole universe that we have not tapped into because
Thank you.
And it just brought up another thing that I watched recently, a TED Talk by a beautiful, beautiful woman. And she basically said that before we hit puberty, our hormones are in balance. We're cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then we hit puberty, our hormones go on this wild ride of fertility, of, getting pregnant, of fertilization, of all of this. And then menopause hits and our hormones basically go normal again and they're back in balance. And so that actually the world leaders all should be women after menopause, because we're balanced, we're focused, they are very, very clear. And instead of compared to men who, when they enter puberty, they just stay in this hormonal Ausnahmezustand state, in this exceptional state, like the whole time. And I thought this was like beautiful, like men 60 and older, they are in this, I need to be the biggest man in the room. I need to hitting their chests and stuff. While women, they keep their cool and they're just, okay, let's focus on this. Let's focus on poverty. Let's focus on world hunger. Let's focus on not killing people all the time, please.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is that, and I'm not sure which prophecy it is. I think it's a Hopi one that says, one day it's going to be the women with white hair who are going to be healing the world. And it may not be completely quoted like that, but there is some truth to it, because every matrilineal society that still exists on this planet has a matriarch. And interesting enough, I was listening to, I think it might have been an Italian professor, and he was talking about the only 3 mammals on this planet who go through menopause. There are elephants, orcas, and females.
Mm-hmm.
So we outliving men. There's no ifs and buts about that. So there's responsibility of actually being the story keepers and the wisdom holders on actually passing that on to the next generation, because the men die earlier. Mm-hmm. And we are not at the whim of the hormones, which is, funnily enough, with all the research I've done on the sister wounding, the witch wounding, and why we all lost our power throughout throughout history, really, or herstory, which I've just written an article about why it should be called herstory and not history, but that's a different thing. It's because when we were not at the whim of hormones and no longer fertile, we were less likely to be able to be controlled because we couldn't be impregnated, which means we weren't depending on a man. And there was a whole, and we're vulnerable when we're pregnant or giving birth or having children, and that falls away. And this is why we are uncomfortable and dangerous. So I call my menopause unarmed and dangerous because that sums it up pretty much on what happens when you speak and how you show up. You don't pussyfoot around anymore, and there's a beauty in that, especially in leadership, because we're still female, we're still meant to nurture. And one thing that I'm passionate while I'm going in corporate with what I do is we need to get off this comparisonitis and toxic competition that still goes on. You know, those networking events when women come in and go, I'm such and I have this degree and la 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 la, all the accolades. When I hold space, I think of it more like imagine Avalon, King Arthur's round table, but for women. If you just take your armor down and your sword, and I want to know, who are you as a woman? You come as the woman first and as the executive or business owner second. Then we're going to have some beautiful conversations when we're going to unpack what's happening, what's really going on, what's the undertow. And I think this is the problem because we are in mixed workplaces a lot, and we're pinned against one another. It hasn't changed, and it suits the men who are, as per the statistics, still in most leading positions. We make it difficult, and because we are mothers and do have babies and families, we can't do the 9 to 5 in the same way that we think we have to. So that's why there's a huge, I guess, renaissance of women wanting to do their own thing. And with this beautiful medium that we're talking about at the moment on opposite sides of the world, it is possible. And the more women understand that they're not so dependent on certain things and they have options, and there are other women who are here to hold them, not to compete with them. Because one of the beautiful quotes that I always use is, if the tide rises, all ships rise. And there is no, we need to get out of the scarcity mindset, I think, and I know it's a cliche, but make the world a better place. Because we don't go to war, like you said, and we do not, we actually, wealth in the hands of women is spent completely differently. And I think the more we do this and the more we share, the more we give others permission to perhaps look outside their confinements and their boxes to go, hey, she can do this. So can I. And I think women who are in menopause are sort of the wise ones on the other side of the fire who go, come on, I've walked through this. You can do, I'm waiting for you. Come on over. And there's a beautiful, I guess, connection and collaboration that can grow from these spaces.
You already touched on this a little bit, but I want to poke you a little bit more because you work in the field of, business, big businesses. So lately, not lately, I notice this all the time, but since what is happening in Germany politically at the moment, you see that more and more, like female politicians are stepping up, but they're even harder and stronger and more assertive than male politicians. And I see that in economics as well. So we have been programmed like that. When we are in leading position, we as women, we need to be crass, we need to be harder, we need to be even more relentless than men are. So how do we change this and still keep the respect and the position that we're in economics and politics and whatever?
It's interesting you brought that up. I read an article not that long ago, and someone coined this as the queen bee effect. Mm-hmm. And as a beekeeper, I don't agree with it because it doesn't work like that. However, it is said that women who, get to the top, get the seat at the table, because they then feel like they have to defend their little ivory tower pinnacle, they're less likely to actually actively mentor or bring up those behind them because they're threatened that somebody younger will take their role, or they have to push the competition out of the way because they've feathered their nest, they're sitting in it. And this is exactly why I work with those women, because I used to be one of them, and it shames me to say that now, but part of my reclamation was really looking at the parts of how did I show up as a general manager of an international media house to my superiors and subordinates. I was probably a tad bitchy and micromanaging and controlling because I was conditioned the same way. And it stems from childhood. That feeling that you're not good enough, that you have to profile yourself, and the ego. You got the corner office and you got the company credit card, and mine is longer than yours. That sort of attitude, we have absorbed that. And this is not working girl Mannerly Griffin 1980s anymore. But we're still operating from that place. And the only way to really get them to look at it is for them to accept that there is a different way and observe somebody who may explain why we're acting the way. Because if someone would have told that to me, I would have said, what? It didn't even compute. I didn't know where I was in my cycle, if the moon was out or not. It was just what I didn't know any different. And then someone said something to me, and I've attended my first circle. There was something inside of me where something on a cellular level remembered that was not who I normally am. And as soon as you know that you're completely different on the weekends or in your family than how you show up at work, there's a disconnect. So my realign framework looks at basically looking at everything holistically, understanding who you are and owning that. And I think here it's the same. You get to the top of the table and you push everybody out of the way. Especially at a certain age, you think, I've worked too hard, I've sacrificed too much, it's taken me too long, it was too hard to get here. Now that I'm here, I'm going to defend it with kingdom come. So it takes collaborative spaces where these women get to see women who show up differently, whether that's in business, in another position in the same company, or for me, it was a woman's circle that someone said, oh, the yoga studio has a sound journey. I go, oh, this is Hogwarts, the woo stuff. Too busy, work to do. And the minute I walked in there, I was nervous. I had everybody sitting in a circle like you do, and they passed the talking stick around, and I was terrified. I go, what am I going to share when that thing comes to me? This was so different. My whole nervous system is like, I bought an Android phone and it was an Apple software I was looking at. I was like, don't compute. But something inside me was like, it was emotional. It felt like I lost control. So if you get the women away from these spaces to experience something differently, to widen their horizon and be involved in more of those women who do things slightly differently, I think that's the way to go. The challenge is to get them to listen and to get them to even be open to go to those places. And for me, I find the only way is to address the burnout part from a probably three-dimensional level, because they're all about outcome and what do I get and what's the process. So I had to take my beautiful feminine chrysalis programs that I work on and change the language, because I don't reach those women, and I would have not listened to any of that because I wasn't at that level. I probably am now at chapter 20 of my journey, and I'm speaking to women who haven't even opened the book, if that makes sense. But I know exactly what you mean, because I see those women, and they tend to be sort of between 45 and 55. And they really are in a position to be a queen, to go, but not from a queen of power over you. That's the old way of doing things. To, hey, let's mentor the young people that come behind you. You can be a fantastic leader, but you can be replaceable. And we're holding on to these old stories on how we need to show up. Or, the power suit has to be 3 colors: beige, black, or navy. It's and I had a closet full of them. So who says you can't have pink or wear a dress, God forbid? Or we have so many old stories. We don't even know if they're our own. And for me, it was, I've spent 3 decades in a career. I was good at it, and I thought that's what I wanted. But I realized I've lived those 3 decades in a place of self-denial because I am wild and I am creative and I wanted to do something completely different. Now I can. So if I can get women waking up to this different way of being a lot younger and a lot earlier, then that's my mission done on this earth, because I don't want them to get to that point. And there's no regret for me. It was part of my journey. But I wish I would have had that knowledge at probably 30. I'd still be in New Zealand, but I would have not gone through the burnout story. So women who are sitting in these positions in power, and politics is a hard place to be, I would imagine. But we have a challenge, and the world still does not vote, certain people in certain positions because they're female or of color or of immigrant status and those sort of things. We're not there yet. And at the moment, I think we need to create those spaces even more so, because we're going backwards otherwise.
Yeah. Yes, I totally feel that there is a shift in power at the moment, and that, old paradigms, old structures are crumbling, and that people are holding on to it, like, because rather stay in the known hell than going in the unknown heaven. But
Yes.
how can we as women who see the bigger picture take our male colleagues, our family members, our friends, how can we take them on board and say, hey, this is where we're going. Look at it. Look at it. This is so much better. Because I talk to so many men who are lost. Who are like, I don't know what my place is. I'm not supposed to provide anymore, but then I am supposed to provide. Then I'm supposed to be the rock, but not be the rock. Not too strong, not too this. Like, how can we take them on this ride with us and be like, hey, it's the balance. We need to create this balance.
That's a good one. As a space holder, I have been holding circles and one-on-one space with females and with couples. I feel this year is the year where that space is open to also hold the masculine, because I think the feminist movement of old is also going through a renaissance, because we pretended to be, trying to pretend to be everything that men can do and act like them. I don't call myself a feminist, I call myself a feminine activist, because once you have that balance, then you still need structure. But the structure doesn't need to be imposed on you. It can be a co-weaving. And mansplaining is one of my other big things, the unconscious bias. And I mean, we still have that. And I think they're conditioned just as much as we have been. And because they've seen us go and do things differently, they have probably lost a bit of footing to go, okay, well, who's going to take me down to look at my conditioning and do they even know? New Zealand is very progressive in that, because we have just as many men's group and men's circle in the somatic space even that we have for females here. I'm not quite sure. I've been out of Germany for a long time. I'm pretty sure they exist to some degree, but I would venture a guess it is probably still very unbalanced. And there were times in my relationship when I was probably making 3 times as much income as my husband, who was a police officer. And I can tell you that I often said, and he celebrated me and had no issue with it. I'm pretty sure if that wasn't the case in my native Germany, I'm pretty sure a few guys would have had a big chip on their shoulder because of, I would call it, maybe they look at it as being emasculated. I mean, look at our taxation system. It's designed for a certain structure anyway. I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed since I left. But that's, again, is a slight tangent. I think we just need to be grounded in ourselves. And I think taking them along and being compassionate on the little steps they may do, because we had the same in my trajectory of relationship, they go, you've changed. That was something that was apparent. Is that yes, because I set some boundaries. I do not people please as much. I do not do things for the sake of doing them. If I really desire not to do them, I've taken a whole lot of those old post-it notes off my pinboard to go, yeah, I'm not lazy when I'm needing to be still. I'm not doing that. So I think being grounded and not asking for permission, I guess. And it's not a quick fix. It needs work. I think the dialogue in saying to him, look, I'm in this trajectory, I'm on the spiral, stepping out of the box. How about you come along for the ride? And it's not necessarily a woo-woo thing. It's just having the conversations to educate them as well. And I mean, one of the most beautiful pieces that I have read in recent times is her story by I think it's Jane Hardwick Collins. And she has a beautiful ebook that people can download. If you get, and I actually recorded and read that on one of my podcast episodes, and I said to my husband, do me a favor, can you just listen to that? Because I sometimes do things here and he hears me saying things out of context. I said, you need to understand the history of what we've gone through, and then you understand the passion I have about the work that I do. He was flawed, and not just a man, even women. Listening to all of that is powerful because you have all of this condensed into 20 minutes and it hits you like a ton of bricks to go, whoa, I understand. Like grief, anger, those are two emotions that are not ladylike. They're not openly accepted. And women are supposed to bottle that up. And one of the biggest things, I guess, or breakthroughs a lot of my clients have when I say to them, mother, that is not a feminine energy. It's an archetype and it's a role, but the actual act of mothering is a masculine energy because you're constantly looking after somebody else, and it's not a feminine energy. And they go, wow, I never thought of that. So I think we've got some education to be done for our beautiful men who, like you said, they don't know. They're kind of in limbo at the moment.
Yeah. And
if that makes sense.
So you talked a lot about how you have changed, like what happened to you through your process. What if you could, tell your 20-year-old self something? What advice would you give her?
I would say stop listening to what other people tell you a lot earlier, and take time to really ascertain what is your story and desire and truth and what is layered upon you. That would probably be, that's what I wish I would have had a lot earlier, I suppose. Yeah.
That's really
be who you are and not have more courage, I guess.
It's really powerful. Thank you so much. So for everybody out there, if you're 20 or 25 or just starting out on whatever journey you're on, stop listening to other people and start listening to yourself, to your gut feeling. And so we talked a lot about comedians and about TED Talks and about books, and all of the links, I will find them and I'm going to put them in the show notes or in the description so that you know what we're talking about here. And Tina, I want to know, where can people find you?
I hang out a lot on LinkedIn by virtue of my work. So it's just Tina Kap-Kailea. Look for the pink jacket and you'll find me. And fempreneurpathfinder.com is my website, or on Instagram, _fempreneur.
And all of those links you will also find in the show notes and in the podcast description, in the episode description. Thank you so much. This was mind blown.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it. That's it for today. That's our show. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and staying with us. And I want to know, what is your biggest takeaway? What is your mind blown? What is the one thing or two things, three things that you take with you that just completely I don't know, blew your mind, changed the way you see the world, or that you want to implement in your daily life, in your routine, in your job, whatever. Like, tell me about it and send Tina some love, because she has shared so much gold with us today. And if you have any questions or suggestions, you can also reach out to me at team@movingriver.com. We have a new email address, so I still have the old one in my head, but it is team@movingriver.com. And if you have 5 seconds, then please go rate and review the show. It would mean the world to me, and I could bring on more amazing guests like Tina, that we can change the world and bring more flow into the lives of people, not just females, also males, and we can create this beautiful balance together. And until next time, keep shining, keep learning, keep growing, and keep flowing.